Hi, Al, I'm Joe, a compulsive eater. I weigh and measure 3 meals a day from the gray sheet. I commit them to my sponsor, those meals, and I don't eat no matter what. And I don't want to mess around with screen sharing, but I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to try to show you a picture. That's a photograph of me probably maybe a year or two before I got abstinent. This is me graduating from college. I was speaker of the class. I don't know if you can see it. I was like bigger than, there we go. There's a really good shot. I was bigger than the podium in that class, in that photograph. And I'll just show you one more happy picture. This is me and my little niece this summer. This is just like so freaking cute. I was at a Renaissance fair, just, looking like a normal human being. It's pretty great. 10 out of 10 as far as I'm concerned. Um, yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna do a good old-fashioned qualification tonight for 15 years. I'm gonna say what it was like, how I got here, and what it's like now. Um, what it was like for me when I was so overweight. The people who are listening to this and didn't get a chance to see the pictures, I was well over 300 pounds, probably about 335 plus pounds. I've always been tall, about 5'10", but no matter how tall you are, you can't really look that good at that weight. It's just kind of impossible. And when I was that weight, I felt like I was imprisoned by my own fat in my body. I felt like I couldn't really move, and I felt like I couldn't really breathe. Like I felt like I had my organs in a way in my body that were just sort of smashed up so close to one another that I could barely take a really deep breath. Like my body was so heavy and so exhausting. And it wasn't just like heavy, like I didn't look cute. It was heavy, like I was heavy, like emotionally heavy, and my body was heavy. And I had developed some coping skills from when I was a young person, um, pretty, really, really young, probably around when my dad died of a heart attack. He was only 45, and I was only 4.5. And when he died, there went my primary caretaker and the one parent in my family that was loving to me, was available to me. Used to play memory games and I would sit on his back and, I would slide down his legs and he would take me to work. And like, I remember I have so many happy memories of my dad. And then he just dropped dead. Bam, he was gone. And my mother was the one remaining. And, God bless her. I forgave her a long time ago. She just did her best with what she had, but she had a lot of unresolved stuff in her life. And really the net result was that she was heavily pregnant with a baby when my dad dropped dead. Then she had a baby. Then she went into a huge depression. And I was just lost. I was lost, totally lost in the middle of all of her raising all the rest of those kids. I was 7 of 8. So there just was no bandwidth for parenting. When my dad died, I lost both my parents. And that's when I started to find ways to comfort myself, to parent myself. And what I believe is that eating food for me during those years was ways to parent myself. It was self-soothing. I was getting a little bit of dopamine too, because that sugar and things like that you would put in your body, it's like you had like the temporary little hit and the avoidance of feelings. But boy, I kind of managed to get away with it for a while. I was pretty normal size for a while because I was really big and really fast and really athletic. And I was a normal size until I was about 5th grade. And then what happened was my mom met my stepfather, and I lost the remnants of whatever was left of my mom because my mom, all of her attention went to my stepfather. So between 5th grade and 6th grade, I put on 100 pounds in 1 year. And how a kid in middle school puts on 100 pounds in 1 year is basically just eating nonstop. I just ate nonstop. Thank you. Oh my God, that was fast. So that's the origin story of my weight, of my 300 something pounds. That's how it came on. It came on like a bull. It wasn't like I didn't like it wasn't cute over time. It was like I put on 100 pounds in a year. And I lived the rest of my adulthood, my young adulthood, as a gigantically overweight person who was really pretty angry. I'm not going to lie. Like, I had a lot of anger. And a lot of times in my experience, I was so afraid and so sad about being rejected by people that I just rejected them first. And I was a pain in the ass. And I was perfect to go to law school. That's what I did. I went to like college and I was a pain in the ass, and I went to law school and it was even worse. I graduated top of my class. I went for the journal and I passed the bar, did all the right things, was supposedly did whatever I was supposed to do, but I was woefully unemployed and my mother was dying of cancer. The reason why I mentioned my mother dying of cancer when I graduated from law school is because I watched her go through her process, and towards the end of her life, when she was about, you know, dealing with the last couple of years of treatments, she was featured in a magazine. And in that magazine, she said in the magazine, well, sugar and flour causes cancer. You shouldn't eat those things. My mother and her was gigantically overweight. And by that point, she had actually stopped eating sugar, flour, and grains right before she died, like a year before she died. And I watched her do it and I listened to her talk about it. She got down to kind of a normal size right before she died. And she died when I was 27. I had been driving back and forth to Boston. I was underemployed. My ceiling was falling down in my apartment. I was hand lighting the pilot light on my stove. I had bags of an open mail. I had so much unmanageability, I can't even tell you. I had an alcoholic boyfriend stealing from me right out of my bank account. And I was pretty sure I'd be dead by 30. There's absolutely no doubt whatsoever, which is like I'm turning 50 this year, which is a huge big deal because I really, really thought I wasn't going to make it past 30. I genuinely thought that. So let me just say this. I buried my mother. I went to my sister's wedding the next day. I drove back to Boston. And 4 days later, I was in a car on my way to Harvard Square to a meeting, to a gray sheet meeting. And I love telling that story. I'm going to fast forward through it though, because that story was that a neighbor was in AA. He had some years of sobriety. He knew Susie H. He said, "Hey, man," probably said that way. "Hey, man, my friend does this thing with her food, and like, I think you would think this is like really great." And I have no idea why I got in the car with that dude. Absolutely no idea. I barely even knew him. I got him in the car. I didn't know it was a 12-step program. I knew nothing. I showed up in Harvard Square. I walked inside and had people say to me, like, "Last house on the block, huh?" And stuff like, I mean, that I didn't even understand. I didn't know what they were saying. I had absolutely no idea what they were saying. I just walked in the meeting, and all I know is that there's former fat girl sitting in the front of the room, used to be 300 pounds. She was a clean mean. She was mean like me. She was just like me. She stole food like me. She ate like me, just all the things. And she was gorgeous. She had like this mocha sexy skin, and she was like in this like nice jeans, and she looked nice, and she had nice nails. And I was like, "Honey, you are speaking my language." And I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want to sit in the front. I don't want to be in the ICU. I didn't want anybody to give me any shit. You know what I mean? Because I felt like when I walked in the room the first time, I felt like nobody knew my problems. Nobody knew them. Nobody knew what I was going through. Everybody's problems were these little tiny 5-pound problems. Isn't it cute that you had to go to your Weight Watchers or whatever? Because I was judging everybody in the room because they were all thin. I had no idea what they all looked like before. I had absolutely no idea. But once I realized it, I got abstinent. One of those skinny girls with the good arms gave me my food for the first time, like 4 weeks later. She was wearing a shirt where you could see her arms. And I was like, "Honey, you don't even know anything about me. You don't know anything about me." But I did listen to her, and she got me abstinent. And thank you. And what I thought was the most amazing thing that I heard in those meetings was the fact that being a compulsive eater isn't my fault. that I didn't do anything wrong, that I wasn't a bad girl, that I wasn't like I didn't lack willpower. It wasn't about that. It was about a compulsion to eat. It was about when you put the sugar, flour, and grains in your body, you crave more of the same. It is normal. It's a normal response to a person who has an alcoholic body. When you put sugar, flours, and grains in it, that you just want to eat more of the same. So it was the first time in my life that I ever talked to somebody or heard somebody talk about compulsion to eat, and that I didn't feel like it was my fault anymore, and I was able to get abstinent. It was very difficult. The first couple of weeks was so hard. I was able to get abstinent and I lost half my body weight in a year. And then the real work started, because then I had to learn how to live in a body that was totally foreign to me. I had no idea what the hell I was doing. I went to therapy. I went to 5 years of therapy about my body. I had surgery on my body. I did triathlons. I ran like distances. I became like a long distance. I did some long distance cycling later, much later in my abstinence. I jumped off every cliff that I could find. I rode every roller coaster. I went out with everybody that asked me. I did all the things with my body that I wanted to for the last 15 years of my life when I lived in a prison. And it was the best time, like, that I could have ever imagined. I just could never have imagined a life like that. It was so remarkable. It was just so remarkable, the physical recovery. And then the emotional recovery came. I had a relapse 7.5 years in. I had to deal with my emotional problems with connections and obsessions with people. Unfortunately, I had to deal with that. That's what made me eat, was a person. It wasn't a place or a thing, it was a person. I had to do a lot of Al-Anon, did a lot of ACA, did a lot of trauma therapy, got cancer almost immediately. As soon as I met my husband, I got cancer. I moved in with him and got cancer almost immediately. His mother, his wife had already died of cancer. Grace's mother had just died of cancer not that long before that, maybe 3-4 years before that. That's the truth. Yeah, maybe 3-4 years before that. And weighed and measure my food. I weighed and measure my food through chemo, through multiple surgeries. I had 2 secondary cancers I had to get surgeries for. I weighed and measured my food through moving to Western Mass, buying a house, getting married. And most importantly, this most sad, hardest, no matter what I ever went through, was being a step parent. It was the most exhausting, terrible, like sad experience in my life. And I did it for a decade. And this kid doesn't want anything to do with me. And I raised her for years. It was like I became a mom and then I wasn't anymore. And it was like I felt like the child that I thought that I had died. That was the feeling that I had. And I still feel like that a little bit. I don't miss her personally. I just miss not being a mom. I love doing that. It was a really wonderful job. And I feel really sad that she doesn't get that in her life. She just doesn't want it. And I had to heal from that. That was the worst thing ever. Um, and I'll just fast forward for a minute that I float in and out of different states of peace, like lately. I think I have a couple of really great opportunities to do more with my spiritual life. Sometimes I'm engaged, sometimes I'm not. Sometimes I'm with it, sometimes I'm not. Sometimes I'm with God, sometimes I push God away, because it's never that God's too far. Somebody once said to me, God's only as far as you push them away. That's it. So it's really just as far as I want to shove that part of my life away from me. Um, but not the end of the story, but maybe the next chapter of the story is that I've been able to stay abstinent for 15 years now. And I have a good job where people respect me, where I do a good job. I have an entire team that supports me. I live in a colonial. I drive a brand new Subaru. I have an amazing dog and I have a hot tub. And all those things are nothing that I would have ever dreamed for myself. I love to make art. I love to garden. And I'll just close really quickly. I know my time is almost up, Victor. I just want to close really quickly, just not humble bragging, but a little bit outright bragging, that I made this pumpkin. And the reason why I want to show it to you, I made that. Hold on, let me try to see if I can get it to come in. Oh, there it is. So I don't know, you can't really see it because you can't see the details. Maybe you can see it, I don't know. But I made that And the reason why I even bring it up is because when I was fat and I was eating, I didn't make art. I didn't do those things. I was eating, or I was thinking about eating, or I was surviving, or I was dealing with financial crises, or I was emotionally disturbed in some way, or something horrible was going on. And I just didn't make the space to make art. That just didn't happen. That didn't happen. And like now, it's like, yeah, I make some space to make art. I'm teaching a little pumpkin carving class on Thursday. I'm delighted about that. And I've never done that before. It's really great. And I feel like it's just one of the hundreds and hundreds of gifts of abstinence. I love you all. I love this meeting. It's my home group. So happy to see you all here. Thank you for celebrating with me my 15 years, and can't wait to hear from others. Thanks.